Thank you for joining us today on the Sisterhood Leadership Podcast with Dianne Wilson, recorded live from Orange County, California. If you'd like to subscribe, click on the link below, diannewilson.com, and we'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Dianne Wilson. Welcome to our brand new Sisterhood Leadership Podcast. We've been meeting as a sisterhood for over 10 years, and recently we were talking amongst ourselves as leaders on what we could do in this very different season and very different era in the life of our church. 10 years ago, most of the women in our sisterhood were either not married yet, no kids, or they had grown kids and time. So we were able to meet every Friday morning. Well, recently I was looking at how many people were able to come on a Friday morning and how many weren't. And it just seemed like crazy for us to not make some changes so that we could reach more women and help more women develop in their leadership. So we're excited about this new leadership podcast, including different leaders every single week. We're having a conversation. There's going to be questions asked and answered. And my heart is to make everything practical, because leadership has got to apply to our real life, not just in theory. And so thanks for joining us. And we really hope that you enjoy this month as we focus on, of course, our Bible, which we love. We call it the Bible Book Club. And Bible in a year is amazing. This is my 17th year around the block. And of course, this month we're focusing on one of my resources, It's Time, and this is a leadership book. So thanks again for being with us and hope you enjoy. So I have with me today the beautiful Tiffany. How do you pronounce your last name?
It's Ngo. So the G is silent and it's like yes and no.
Gotcha. And spelled?
Ngo.
Got it. Mm-hmm. There we go. We just had a lesson.
Yes.
In what language?
Vietnamese.
Ah, beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. So I do remember meeting you the first time. You had just come to our church and you were at a welcome lunch and you were sitting at a high table, and I never forgot your name. And every time I would see you serving in our church, I would say, "Hi, Tiffany." And you look at me like, she remembered my name.
Yeah.
Now, my husband says the reason he married me is because I'm good with names. Right. It's not true, actually. I remembered your name because I remembered your smile and I remembered your engagement when we had that first conversation. And so it just automatically stuck. And so I think you're really lovely. And although you're softly spoken, it's a good quality. You're an amazing leader and you're a high achiever in the workplace. So tell us a little bit about what do you do, because you're part of our sisterhood leadership team, newly appointed retail development. Resource development. Yeah. Well, it's all about fashion, right? So if we're going to do a conference shirt or a sisterhood shirt or a sweater or something, I mean, you're the one who introduced the leggings. I'm like, leggings? Okay. And I wear them to the gym all the time. They're really comfortable and amazing. But it was you being creative and not just doing boring kind of clothes, but saying, let's do something that is cutting edge, that looks really good, that is flattering on ages and stages. And so you're now going to be developing more of that for our sisterhood, which is cool. But what do you do as a career? What's your career?
That's actually, I feel like, a very difficult question to ask people nowadays, just because there are so many options now with the internet, and I'm actually in digital media marketing. So I don't even know how to put that under an umbrella, but it's a very creative role, but a very analytical role. And basically anything that you see online, whether it's an advertisement or branding, or if you see a color or like the Tiffany blue color that resonates with that brand, I'm kind of the brains behind that in trying to establish people to recognize a brand through other things versus just their name, but certain things that they do online. So.
Oh, that's so cool. That's fascinating. That's a whole conversation.
It's a huge topic, and I think they're just starting to introduce it into universities now, where you can learn or go into the field to specialize in digital media. So
what did you study at university?
So I actually studied journalism with an emphasis in public relations, and I had the big dream of going to New York and working for Harper's Bazaar or Vogue. But around that time was when blogging became really big. And another lesson for the day is blog is actually, it's a shortened term for weblog. and they just mushed it together to blog. And I had to take like a computer course and realize that print was dying, and where I needed to be was in digital media. So that's why I'm here.
So interesting, amazing, wow.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like ministry and leadership, because that I know that your job is like, it's big. And I don't understand it either. You don't understand it. I don't understand it either. But you always value yourself when needed. So your availability for me is always impressive, because even though you've got this big life, you don't give the Lord margin a little bit. You actually you always jump at the opportunity to make anything happen for the kingdom, and I love that. And appreciate the fact that it's not always easy, but you make that happen. You're not married, you've got a lovely boyfriend, and this is a different season, so obviously things change, when you've got kids. And but what would you say as far as time application? Like, how do you do that? So you have a career, like it's a big job, and yet you seem to be available for church life. How have you done that?
Oh, I would say that it's where to start. I feel like I've always been, well, first of all, I'm very type A personality, so very, very organized. Like everything is in a calendar, everything is in a set schedule, and I'm not one to just like kind of go off on a whim. I mean, sometimes I can do that, but it took a lot for me to learn to be flexible. But then once I did learn how to be flexible, it actually helped a lot in moving my schedule around to making it to things that I prioritized and I really cared about. How do I do it? I don't know. I think for a long time, I put, not in a bad way, but I put others before myself, because ultimately you only have one life to live. And my impression wasn't to necessarily benefit myself, even though your health is important. So you should take the downtime and the me time if you truly need it. But I felt like I learned gratitude at a very young age, and the way that I grew up, the way that I was able to live my life in such a nice, privileged area, which is very much Orange County. Even though I moved around a lot, I always had a roof over my head. My parents provided me with a car. I had an education. I mean, we are middle class, but that's much better off than some people who don't even have a home.
Yep.
And so once that concept, I got a hold of that concept, I kind of used that as my springboard into doing things.
Yep.
How can I make myself available, because I can make myself available.
Well, I'm thinking about, because we were just talking before we started filming about one of the chapters in It's Time that you had mentioned about loyalty, and what does a loyal heart do? And what I'm seeing through everything you're saying is the fact that God developed a loyal heart in you, and out of a loyal heart comes a loyal life, and it takes on whatever it needs to take on based on that decision, the primary decision of loyalty. So loyalty to God and to Jesus, building his church, building the kingdom. And so that that you're definitely thoroughly, like, you've got that loyalty thing down.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's actually a really great leadership trait. So did you have any questions that you thought might be helpful to others that we could talk about to do with loyalty and leadership?
Well, that's like right on the money, because I feel like nowadays it's really hard to find loyal people. Not in a bad way. It's just we have choices, like a plethora of choices now. We do live in an internet digital age, which is a double-edged sword, because it's a great thing to have so much resource, but because you have more knowledge, you have more choices, which and as human beings, we're easily offended. So if we're in a certain place that we're meant to be, but we feel offended, and we have another choice that we can easily migrate to, we feel it in our heart that it's best to leave.
Right.
And so my question is, like, how do you find people to disciple or to train into becoming leaders, and to stay persistent in that character growth in order to be the best leaders they can be, when there are so many options out there, so many amazing churches, and just how to find, or how to, I guess, teach the lesson of loyalty, which is a little bit of a hard lesson to teach.
Well, yeah, I think every area is different, and this could be said of wherever you live or whatever kind of city you're in. But I would say for sure, there's a lot of There are a lot of options here in Orange County, and there are a lot of, and what happens with that is it kind of breeds a kind of that ability in people to live like that. So even though there are options everywhere, does that make everything wonderful? Like, all those options are not also always helpful. I know that as a leader, my loyalty is what matters, as far as I have to make sure, like, I'm a loyal person. After 20 years of ministry, I still can't work out how to make sure everyone else is loyal. It's like one of those things. I don't know. There are certain people, and you think, they're going to be with you for life, and then something happens, and it's not always offense. Sometimes it's just opportunity. And that's okay. Either of those things, they do happen. But as far as my role in being a leader and discipling people, my role is to help them learn how to develop loyalty, because hopping around all the time to different places, different relationships, different churches, different jobs, your resume, you just, like, what do you want it to look like? Your life's history, jumping from person to person to person. I love collecting people. So, and Jonathan has been in one church his whole Christian life, and until Newport Church, my husband Jonathan, and I grew up in the same area. My mum and dad live in the same house my mum grew up in, and she's 82, and she's been in that house for 79 years. Because she's loyal to the house. I'm like, I grew up in that house. That house was a house of loyalty, and relationships are important. And I think just living it and being a role model is probably all we can do. And there are going to be some people who were raised to be opportunistic, and they'll come into an environment of loyalty, and they'll be either refreshed by it or they'll be offended by it. And we just got to stay the course ourselves. And I've got to say this, I'm just thinking of a funny incident with you.
Oh, no.
Okay, so you're so awesome. So at our Imagine conference, which is every October, we just had one last year, a few months back, I remember you walking up towards me and saying, Pastor, I need to talk to you. Okay. And you did look serious, not intense, but serious. And honestly, I thought, oh no, there's something wrong with Tiffany. She was, and here's the thing, because you just never know what's going on with anyone. Like, how do you really actually know?
Yeah.
We barely know what's going on with ourselves. Try to second guess all of humanity. So I'm thinking, are you okay? Oh please, I hope you're okay. This is in my head. I'm not saying this to you. I'm like, sure, what's up? Thinking the whole time, I hope you're okay. And you were just serious, because you were about to tell me that you and two other of our amazing young sisterhood leaders were ready to go into juvenile hall. And juvenile hall is, it's a jail for teenagers here in Orange County. And I went from worrying about you, thinking, oh no, I hope she's okay and not going to leave.
Oh.
No. Or I hope she's not offended with something or someone, or I hope everything's okay, to elation. So I just had
it's
this...
Like 0 to 100.
I seriously was so... And I'm like, oh my goodness. Because, even for me sometimes, I think... Because if you have like a series of challenges or a season of, some disappointments, because it's going to happen in ministry and in leadership, you can kind of then... Your default can be like... Oh, another grenade or another whatever. But what's refreshing about you, I love, is the fact that, you're not a talker. I mean, you're a wonderful conversationalist, and you're super smart, and you're a boxer, and you're a hip hop dancer.
Oh,
she's and my Bella loves you. Oh my goodness.
Her.
Yeah, you love Bella.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're not necessarily like big out there kind of person, to never underestimate your strength of leadership. It's like amazing. So I got word just this week from the director of the unit, and we're going to be going in to juvenile. So you and your two friends, actually I'm going to get the three of you here, and we'll do a session with the three of you, and what drove you to want to do that, because it's not going to be easy. These girls are like a real mess. Some of it's because of decisions they made. Most of it is because of how they were raised or not raised. And so for us to be able to have that privilege to speak into their life, because you can't just walk in, hi, I'm here and I want to visit with all the inmates. No, you can't do that. So it's a big privilege, and I was just super excited that you wanted to do it. So we've got a couple of minutes. Do you want to just share what was it that made you think that was an important part of what your purpose was?
Well, actually, coming to Newport Church, the first thing that made an impression on me was the Imagine Foundation. I was actually not raised Christian. I was not raised in a faithful home, and I think it was just one of the most real things here, because it's very real what we do when we go out into the community and we serve these women and girls, and now we have a book for boys, which is amazing. It just showed to me that this church is about the community. And so I wanted to dive right in. Like you said in the beginning, I'm a diver. I do not hesitate. When my heart attaches to something, I'm there and I'm with it for the next 100 years. And I grew up around here, not necessarily Irvine, Newport area, but I grew up in Santa Ana, which is, there's news out there. It's not the greatest city to grow up in. And I wanted to go into juvenile hall because I just felt like I could really connect and relate to these girls, because I grew up with them. And when I was younger, I don't think I ever took the opportunity to ask someone what their story was.
Right.
And or get to know why they grew up in that or why they had to face those circumstances, or not that they had to, but just ask them how they are, So when I heard that we were going into juvenile hall, I just got excited, because it was time to have conversations with those girls and make them feel like we are here for them and we want to care for them and we just want to listen to them. And nowadays it's the greatest opportunity and the time to listen to people's story, because we have such big platforms to share our stories. And I feel like, because I'm not much of a talker, I'm a great listener, and I just am excited to go in and hear their stories and maybe help them cope through what it is that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
It's really incredible, actually, and a lot of these kids, all of them will be out of there at some point, whether they age out and move on to another facility or they're released. The ability that we have to come into their life at the most critical time, because of course they've got the social worker and they've got the staff. It is not the same. So when we got appointed as faith partners, church and state, watching how amazing the relationship is, because the government is not able to be to these girls what we have been entrusted with. And we've already seen a couple of the girls come to our church, make decisions for Jesus, when they have not understood a thing about anything. They've heard about religion. They did not know about freedom or grace or the power of salvation, and just seeing the raw from the worst situation to this elation of having Jesus in their life. So I'm looking forward to more girls, and of course young men as well. We need men to go and chat with them. I think if you went to where the teenage boys are, they'd be too distracted.
Yeah.
you and the two musketeers, Charlie's Angels. That's what the three of you are.
That's
beautiful.
Yeah.
So our time is up for today, but thanks for being here. Busy schedule, girl, and we'll be back next week. And thanks again for being with us.
Thank you for joining us today on the Sistered Leadership Podcast with Dianne Wilson, recorded live from Orange County, California. If you'd like to subscribe, click on the link below, diannewilson.com, and we'll see you next week.